We're starting. Okay. Hi, hi, hi. This is Eric Jackson, founder of Laurentum, and I'm really, really excited to have Mia Russell on our inaugural sort of educational series. And I'm going to save a little bit of time and not do all of these introductions for you. I'll let you sort of talk about yourself. But
Mhm.
personally, I think you're fantastic, and I'm really excited to do this, and I'm really excited to learn from you and sort of what you're going to create. And let's like get into it. So, first question, we'll start really easy. Who are you?
My name is Mia, and I work with Laurentum. I'm doing account management and also the education program, which is very exciting. And alongside that, I'm also a coach and a facilitator, and that's part of my community building. So I do various things
You're
and
out
like to
here.
exactly what do they call it nowadays? Multi-hyphenate.
You're a multi hyphenate. You didn't
Hmm.
mention published author,
True,
uh,
true,
recent confirmed American. Like you're a lot of
true.
things.
I am a
Owner
lot of
of a
things.
very cool haircut. Okay, so you sort of already jumped into the like what you do, which is you are multi hyphenate. But I would love to dig like a little bit deeper into sort of one what you're doing with Laurentum and how we are so excited to have you on the team. And then two, sort of within your community building, sort of what you're doing there.
Hmm. You want details on what I just shared?
Yes, yes.
You want the hot goss?
I want the hot goss. Give me the tea.
So, well, with Laurentum, I'm managing accounts for brands and partnering them with communities. And really, we're taking a lot of time to very intentionally match brands with clubs and organizations and community builders who are doing amazing things. And then
That's very
alongside
cool of
that,
us.
I know it's so cool of us. Look at us supporting communities to thrive.
Yeah,
And then also supporting communities to thrive through education and creating resources and tools because community building sounds fun and is so rewarding, but can often be really intimidating to start out or to sustain. So, supporting community builders to actually have access to funds and access to resources and to each other to be able to have the kind of conversations that make it feel less daunting and more sustainable. And then that I really have an appreciation for what we're doing at Laurentum because I've had the experience of building the community over the last nearly 10 years, which is wild to say, and various other communities before that. I was also a community program manager where I worked a lot with art groups and building community and community development. So it's very much a big part of my background is like, how do you build community without telling them what to do, but like resourcing them to be able to actually build what they want and what they need. And it's less like a top down approach, it's more like power and lifting them up rather than like telling them this is what community should look like, this is how it is, because it's very much depends on the group and the people of what does community mean and why is it important and why bother cultivating it at all. So yeah, there's a lot of angles that I'm approaching this conversation from, which is cool.
okay. And once again, we're really lucky to have you. I think I mean, you would have been hired anyways for all of the myriad skills that you have, but I think what's really fun and interesting and valuable for both the brands that we partner with and especially for the communities is that you're someone who's done it. You've been there. And so as we're having these conversations with communities and they're having questions or they don't quite know how to like deliver sort of a marketing resource or they don't quite know why a brand would want to work with them, you've sort of been there, done that, and you can sort of coach them through and help them sort of get the most out of the partnership. So really excited. Okay, I want to more tea. I really want to
Mm-hmm.
dig in and hear about the community that you built. So can you just give me the elevator pitch, the 2 minute thing for sort of the community that you've been running for the last decade, and then we
Mm-hmm.
will spend so much more time with me digging into the details.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's shifted a lot over the last 10 years. Actually started as a sex educator. which
Okay.
is very niche. And I started it in Australia when no one was a sex educator. And that was a funny time. Like it was a time when that felt more intimidating to people. Um, and yet people were very intrigued of like, oh, I want to come to this workshop. I want to come to this event. I want to come to this series. I want to come to like a facilitated group experience, and to celebrate and be in playful about what pleasure looks like. That it's not just one way. And so I remember the very first event I ever did. I
Okay.
charged maybe $5
Okay.
because I
Affordable.
because because I wanted no pressure on me. I just wanted an opportunity to experiment. And then over the years, I have done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of events. I've either taught or educated or facilitated or coached. I've worked with hundreds of individual clients and then thousands of people through groups.
Yeah.
So it's really evolved over the years. And now I do group coaching that's mostly online because I have people all over the world that work with me. Whereas when I started, it was very geographically specific. And so it's changed and shifted a lot over the years. And I think also pandemic, it just like inevitably responding to that and moving things online as well. So that's very broad and
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
like shallow description of it. But now I do a lot more somatic coaching, which is like looking at ourselves as a whole. So it's like thoughts, feelings, sensations, connection to self and others and land. And that can mean different things to different people. But one of the big offerings that I do is about how to feel more aliveness and how to like allow a greater quality of life, which sounds also kind of vague, but I could go into more detail later if you're interested.
I am very interested. I think, yes, vague, but I think that question in itself and that desire and trying to achieve that feels very vague and a little bit out of touch for a lot of people. Of like,
Sure.
it should feel better. This should be nicer. I should be
Mm-hmm.
more joyful. And I don't quite know why I don't feel that way or how to like tap into that. So that's really interesting. Before we get into the details, one thing I'm super interested to hear about is when you're throwing your initial sort of events and you're like, okay, I'm only charging $5 to take the pressure off. Did that
Mm-hmm.
actually work? Or like I would imagine still doing the events, even if it was $5, it was just full of
Mm-hmm.
so much pressure.
For sure. I remember having a little bit of a meltdown before my first event because I was like, oh my God, what did I do? Why did I think that this was something that like conversation that I could hold? I didn't even make it a workshop. I wasn't trying to teach anything. I was just like, here's some resources I know. Let's like have a conversation about particular topics. And I did it as a series. And I remember there was probably like 20 people that turned up and I was shocked. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe people even turned up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but I did have a little bit of a meltdown before, even though I was trying to make it as little pressure as possible because I just wanted to make it like the smallest. I probably couldn't have articulated it to myself at that time, but I wanted to make it like the smallest step that it was like impossible not to do. It was like
Yeah.
easier to just do the thing and begin the thing rather than trying to make it perfect
Mm.
before I began. And I think that that is something a lot of people share is like, oh, it has to be, my first one has to be this big bang and incredible. And like, otherwise it's not worth the time and effort. So yeah, I've come a long way.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So now I want to dig a little bit deeper into that because I think that reflects so much of sort of Laurentum's approach to how we're building and how we're working on this is that like, we're doing in beta and we're building and we're going fast and we're just like, hey, this is what the community needs. Let's
Hmm.
just let's just try something. Let's just try something. We'll see if it works. And so that really resonates that like, what is just the smallest little step that like it
Hmm.
would be impossible for me to sort of trip up, but I can like get it done. Sort of
Hmm.
what made you like make that decision? Was it sort of a forcing function of like, I've wanted to do this and like now I'm not giving myself a choice because I'm doing this really small step? Or is it just like, has that generally been your approach of like, a bunch of little steps equal a big step?
Mm, it's a really good question. I think I've
Thank you.
oscillated. You're like, it is about me. Thank you so much. I think I've oscillated. I think one of the approaches that I really encourage clients now, just with somatics and like moving towards things you care about and embodying things that you care about, is like microdosed, messy, imperfect, and playful. And it's like, how do you do everything in a microdosed, messy, imperfect, playful way? Because it's less about how it actually is, and it's more about the momentum of Laurentum. Just had to say that.
Listen, yeah,
Uh,
no, get it.
and and I think that it shows like, oh, I'm actually acting on what I care about,
Yeah.
and that builds a sense of trust of, okay, I care about it enough to work out how to make it happen. And so at that time when I was like charging $5 and just wanting to do the thing and to begin the thing, because I was like, this is the kind of person I want to be. I want to be offering these kind of conversations where I'm having these conversations amongst my friends and amongst people who I relate to, and people that come to me who are like, hey, how do you do that thing in a personal capacity, where they'll be like, oh, you're the kind of person that knows about this stuff just because
Yeah.
you're personally interested. I was like, I want to shift from being like a personally known as that kind of person to like professionally known, but how do you begin that? And so I think I've oscillated between like do less things better and microdose, messy, and perfect playful. Like anything worth doing is worth doing badly. And I think holding both of those things at the same time of like doing less things better and being clear about like what do I actually care about, while also being like, it's better to do it badly than not at all, is something that I think has been very much that like dance between those two when it comes to building community and building businesses and building anything that's like from scratch.
Yeah. I think one, this conversation itself is an example of like, let's just do it. This was an idea a week and a half ago, maybe scheduling and just like, cool, we're gonna put it together. We want to help people. We'll see how it goes. It might be messy, and I'm as you were talking, I was like, okay, well, there's our first snippet. I've already forgotten sort of the four things or microdose,
Mm-hmm.
messy, playful. I'm missing the
Perfect and playful.
imperfect and playful. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly sort of it. And I think there's something in that that is like really resonated, especially within like sort of the Y Combinator community of like how they build startups. It's like, just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Just build
Mm-hmm.
something. Just build
Mm-hmm.
something and then you'll like figure it out. And so that takes a lot of bravery and I'm sort of interested. So once again, thinking of sort of that first event that was microdosed, imperfect, playful, etc. The see, I keep forgetting. Four things, make it three. Three little. It's always going. This is an American thing. We only do things in threes. God, Holy Spirit, Jesus. It's all threes. Um, is that like so you go and you're like, okay, I'm doing this forcing function. I don't know if it's going to be great, but you do have 20 people. You have sort of your freak out moment, and then you go and you do it. And I'm sure sort of the experience of it is like, there's 1,000 things that I'd want to do better, but like thinking of the people who actually experienced it, sort of what was the reaction from them of this like messy little experiment that you invited them to for $5?
Impressively impactful.
Yeah.
People, I think because it was focused on pleasure, and that's like somewhat of a taboo, that even just speaking about pleasure was opened new possibilities for people, rather than just having internal conversations that might be layered with like shame or guilt, for example. It was gathering and knowing that everyone there was there for a similar reason, even if it wasn't the same, it was related. And that made it feel like, even if I didn't know how to facilitate a space and to truly like hold a group well, of like good facilitation, it was okay, I've brought together people who care about a similar thing and we get to talk about it, and in that in itself, that is radical. And I
Yeah.
think that like the intention of gathering nowadays, particularly while we're in like the loneliness epidemic, and that we're hosting less than ever. Like when you look at the data, even a generation ago, like even our parents, for example, used to have backyard barbecues all the time. And it would be really low commitment. It would just be come over, bring some things, we'll throw it on the barbecue, that's it. And
Yeah.
that, like across all cultures of people, that would be kind of the simplest way to gather. And now I think people get really stuck on it being fancy and perfect, even in a professional, I'm not a professional, a personal capacity to hosting. And I think that translates into community spaces. It's like people are tired and people think that it needs to be perfect to host community events. And then that just isolates us even more of like, in the loneliness epidemic, it's like hosting is exhausting, it feels expensive, but actually it's like, how can you do the simplest thing and do it together? And I think that's such a good approach to building any community is like, hey, I want to do this thing. There's probably other people who also want to gather for the same reason and like do a thing together, talk about a thing together, explore a thing together, build a thing together, whatever it might be. And starting from that really simple baseline of like, I'm a human, there's other humans that probably want this.
Yeah.
How do we find each other and do that thing together?
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense, and I think really resonates with why we even sort of started Laurentum, is
Agreed.
that these, my background, all the marketing for a long, long time and all that other stuff, but it just feels like it's lost its soul a little bit. And, we're seeing this with like AI ads and all of these
Hmm.
things are sort of inauthentic and people are rejecting it, right? Like
Yeah.
they know that Instagram influencers are lying to them and that they're being paid. They
Yeah.
know that when they
And all
go
their content is
online,
from AI.
yeah, and all their content is from AI and like everything you're sort of like looking for the angle. And so there's been this sort of thing of, okay, these running clubs, these cycling clubs, dinner clubs, like chat rooms, etc. Of just like, I just want to meet one, I just want to get out of my house. Like,
Hmm.
I want to get out of my house. I want to interact with people and like I want it to feel like low pressure.
Hmm.
And I think that is something that we are really, really trying to cultivate in the communities that we work with is that you are providing a service and making that bigger, better, treating it like a business, especially we're in San Francisco and sort of all the startups, how can we make this as big and profitable as possible? And it's like, listen, just like create a space for people to connect and we will help you like reach brands. We'll help you get
Hmm.
partnerships. We'll
Help you
help
do
you
the hard
learn to
stuff.
like make your community better. But like the community building itself is really difficult, right? Like creating sort of that safe space. So it's really interesting and like valuable. And I think a message to a lot of would-be community creators is that like probably the presence is the gift, right? Like it doesn't have to be the most perfect, amazing thing ever. It can just be getting some people together in a room to talk about something that they probably have a shared concept of. I'm getting really
The
motivated to
presence is the
yeah,
gift.
yeah. I mean the way would have been the presence is a present, but that's been done in a lot of hip hop. Okay, so tell me your like. I just watched a Marvel movie. Tell me your origin story from like you're walking around and you get bit by a spider and now you have community building superpowers. But just sort of like what got you to that? That was a Spider-Man reference. What got you? What got you to that point where you're like, okay, I want to host this event for 20 people and I'm going to charge them $5 a pop. And like, what was sort of that, what was that motivation?
I think now I have the obviously like the insight and wisdom, and it's easier to say retrospectively. Um, but I think that being able to have a shared experience with other people allowed me to the opportunity to become a different person than I was
Mm,
previously or how I was perceived. And it was a space for me to experiment with who am I and who do I want to be, and what do I want to contribute to the world, while also like I want to be helpful and I want to contribute good things to others and the world. And I think there was a certain level of naivety that is helpful when beginning anything. It's like if you actually know how hard it's going to
Yeah.
be, and you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh yeah, 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 I'll just like do this thing, and then I will have built like a whole new way of being an identity in a business, and it'll be chill. And of course it's not, but that's part of the satisfaction is like learning along the way how you want to be and who you want to be and how you want to do things better. So I think there was various moments where I had a little bit of like a find me, find myself kind of international trip. And that gave me space to think about who do I want to be in this next chapter of my life. And the more I thought about it, the more it was like, I want to host these kind of events and I want to do it with others. So, yeah, it was ushering in a new era for myself and being helpful to others.
I love the pauses. I love the moments of introspection. I have not really thought of it as community building as a way of sort of like building yourself, right? Like
Mm,
understanding and defining yourself. And something that jumped out and you said, and I hear this from a lot of community builders, and this has definitely been the ethos of Laurentum is like, I just want to be helpful. I want to be helpful
mhm,
and I want to put something good out into the world. And so when I think about that, I think a lot of that comes into trust, which like perfectly segues into sort of the next question, which is like, how did you build trust in your community of like, hey, I'm here to help, but like people don't always believe that. So,
mhm. Yeah, I think there's a really helpful quote um, from like a somatics lineage called generative somatics, which is about like moving at the pace of trust and how we can't rush trust building. And maybe that's trust building with ourselves, maybe that's with others, maybe that's with our clients, with our communities. And that having opportunities where it was like low cost, where people actually got to have an experience of how I facilitated or how I held an event, it allowed them like a low risk, highly accessible opportunity to be like, oh, okay, I think I get what Euphemia is doing and why, and um, it's beneficial. And so it
yeah,
was like building trust and then people talking to people and being like, this is something that I can vouch for and I think that you would appreciate. And so it was very much word of mouth to begin with. And that is very much based on trust, is like word of mouth is always the most powerful marketing tool. And it's also the hardest earned because it's so reliant on trust, and that people I think are oversaturated nowadays in terms of having a million options of what to do, that it's like, okay, I want to know if someone else has done this because it's a big commitment to go to a new event or try a new thing or like invest a certain amount of money in something. So I think I built trust through making it accessible, making the events really like financially accessible to begin with while I was experimenting. I built trust by really creating a very supportive, helpful experience for the people who attended and really going like above and beyond as much as I could with my capacity at that time, so that that led to word of mouth marketing and endorsements. And then it was consistency of like, okay, I've consistently created groups and community events and spaces where people know, oh, I can show up and I can have this kind of experience. And that I think consistency over time builds reputation. So I think there's various layers to that. And then I would say that like the most important is integrity, where it's like if I'm clear about why am I doing this work, or why am I offering these events, or why am I gathering people, and that comes from a place of integrity, like I want to be helpful, people can also feel that, and it's like seen and felt in someone's actions.
Yeah. I think all of that really resonates with me, and putting like, you make a really good point about the low barrier to entry, right? Like everyone has tons of options, and people are really honestly jaded just because there's so many things sort of being thrown at them. So it's like, hey, here's something, take it or leave it. It's not, it's not going to be a big commitment. And if you have a good time, great. And you're going to continue to have a good time. It's really interesting as you're talking about community. I'm thinking about just life in general, right? Of like,
Mhm.
let me make it simple for people to interact with me. Let me make sure that I'm consistent, and I love what you said about sort of consistent integrity becomes your reputation. And I think that knowing you, I'm sort of really interested to continue seeing your integrity show up as we sort of build this company around like what's the easy way or what's the fast way versus what's the way that's going to best benefit our communities and what's going to best benefit the brands that we're working with, even if that means that we're going to lose money doing it.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's very
I
cool.
mean,
Okay.
I think you're really good at balancing that, but you're really good at moving fast and experimenting while also like being very values aligned and having the integrity. So with your leadership, I think we'll be fine.
Oh my gosh. I if I could blush, I would. I'm a slightly rosier brown right now. Okay. So, in the first year of growing your community, sort of what are three things that you did that were just like chef's kiss?
Oh, I think the three things that I did best in my first year of hosting community events was charging less so that it felt like less pressure for me and more accessible for others, even if that felt like a challenge to begin with, of like, oh gosh, am I underselling myself? Um, and then being really bold in how I would share, of like, as I was speaking about that kind of naivety of just do the thing and say the thing and share the thing rather than overthinking every single step. It's just like share the thing on social media, say the thing to the person, like promote it, and don't be shy about it. Really like vouch for myself, and then creating systems in my business so that it could create ease over time, where maybe it wasn't like easy to build the systems to begin with, but it was an investment in making things more easeful over time, so that it wasn't, because events can be so tiring, and like the event cycle can be so tiring. It's okay, every time I do this I'm making it slightly easier for myself so that there is momentum, where putting on another event doesn't feel like a huge lift every time. It's like, okay, I know this thing, I've got this thing, I've delegated this task, I've created this system. This person, I'm not good at AV, but this person thinks it's easy, so they're gonna they're going to handle that. Like just really putting systems in place so that I could build a foundation over time. So I think they're the three main things that I did well, and I definitely did a lot of things badly in my first year of events, but that's part of the experiment.
All right, let's get into the bad things. We've talked about all of the positives. You've built this amazing high integrity, sort of low cost, and now you have people. What have like some of the challenges been in building your community? To be more specific.
I wish that I had delegated more in my
Mm,
first year. I had I had a lot of people who were really excited to work with me and who were really enthusiastic and really skilled. And I felt like I needed to take on too much and that I had to give them only like the easy, fun jobs and that I had to do like the hard things or the things that I perceived as hard, but maybe someone else would find really easy. And so I think as so many leaders do, they feel as though they need to hold everything. And I think as like a community builder, I needed to actually be more community minded in my leadership, where I'd be like, oh, this person actually wants to take on more responsibility and I can delegate this and just like leave this. And it
mm,
wasn't a trust thing, it was more of like a momentum thing where it's like, oh, it's just easier if I do it because I'm in such a new stage of trying to do events. I'll just do it even if it's like stressful and time consuming. So what I did badly was not delegating enough
mm,
and not giving people an opportunity to really step up in the ways that they wanted, and probably not necessarily micromanaging, but being maybe a bit over controlling of like the event needs to happen this way for it to be a success.
mm. I think that that reminds me of something I heard from a manager that I think a lot about when I sort of moved into management. I was like doing some work and I was like trying to, I had someone who I was like training to do this work, and they were not as good as me. And I was like, I could do this in 15 minutes, and it's going to take them an hour. And the 15 minutes
Hmm.
that I do it is going to be better. And so I would like take that off their hands, give them something else to do, and then I would do it in 15 minutes. But like all of that sort of stacks up. And I was just like burning myself out. And I like talked to my manager was like, "You're doing a bad job. Like, I'm not paying you to do that 15-minute thing. If you do it perfectly, you're being overpaid. I'm paying you to train that person to be able
Hmm.
to do that thing in 15 minutes and do it really well so that you can go and do this bigger thing with your full focus because, like, you sort of demonstrated that you can solve bigger problems." And
Hmm.
that was a really big sort of shift in my management style. Sort of the approach that I've taken to Laurentum, et cetera, is like, if I'm not good at something, or if there is someone else who could do it half as good as I can, like, cool, I'll let them go do that. If I
Hmm.
have to tweak it or fix it, great. Like, there's bigger rocks, and my focus needs to be on the really big rocks. So I think
It's
that's a
strategic.
really, really good lesson. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The when you speak about sort of delegation, I think that's something that we hear from a lot of sort of community members is they're putting a lot of time, a lot of love, a lot of energy into this thing. And like the community maybe was initially built to sort of help them grow, change, etc. And now it's become sort of this exhausting thing. How do you think, they can work on like delegation, removing some of the work? Do they do that with community members? Do they add people to the team? Sort of how did you think go about approaching that?
I think, and I take this like I work with leaders now in terms of leadership development and team development. So I have a very different understanding and approach to like leadership. And that in early day experiments and leadership, I think that there needs to be, when you find people who are enthusiastic, it's really finding like what are the skills that they're good at. It's like matching people to the skills that they're good at rather than trying to just like allocate a particular job to anyone. So, for example, in a community event, if there's someone who's really keen and is like showing up to every event and they're like really outgoing, it's like, hey, what are your skills? Do you want to become more involved? And like giving them responsibility makes them feel more invested. And when
Yeah.
they feel more invested in a community, that's when community values come through. That's when belonging truly happens, is when people can feel invested. And it's actually giving people a gift and an opportunity to shine and to be seen in their own skills. And that it sounds counterintuitive, but I think that often when you give people a chance to build on the skills they're interested in, then it shows like to other people, oh, I want to get involved and I want to offer this thing. And people come from a more generous place. They come from a more excited place and they come from more of a place of like truly investing and belonging, which is important in teams and organizations and companies, but like the most important in a community where people are doing it because they want to, not because they have to.
I think there's something in there that really resonates with me is once again through capitalism and sort of all the stuff that exist, I am finding that like uh, community leaders or community builders are sometimes treating their community members like customers.
Mhm.
Um, and that sounds a little actually counterintuitive to building a really thriving, engaged community. Is that like it's shared? They're members. Like you were all members working on this thing, and that sort of sounds like that was a big unlock for you.
Mm. Yeah, I think that also makes me think that like in my first year of business, something I did badly was like I wrote a business plan. Like I went through like a small business program and wrote a business plan. And part of that vision and part of like the mission statement and so on, all these things that they take you through, there wasn't necessarily like, okay, but what are your values and how do you like orient your business to that? And I think one of the things that I didn't do well in my first year of business was like be able to speak really clearly and directly to those values, because when you do and you use those words and you just like flag and show that you're invested in particular values, that's when like people just will appear out of the woodwork and be like, oh, I care about that too. Oh,
Yeah,
you're using a language that I understand. Okay, I'm in. And then that just like creates a certain amount of momentum and attraction to the events where it makes the marketing really easy, and it makes it um, feel more natural rather than, as you're saying, like treating community members like customers. It's like treating them as people who hold similar values to you.
yeah. Yeah, I'm excited because hearing that, it feels like maybe we're taking the right approach in building Laurentum. Is that like there isn't a like crisp written out business plan, but there is like a crisp written out like values, how we treat
Mhm.
people, how we treat each other, how we treat our community, and how we, you know, treat the brands that we partner with and connect them is like we will sort of figure out how to build a business around this and monetize and all that sort of cool jazzy tech stuff. But what is like most important is we just want to help communities thrive, and we've sort of committed to if we are faced with decisions, we are going to always make the decision that like helps the most people.
Mm,
um,
love
and
that.
I think that's yeah, I think that's been reflected on, you know, how we're going so far
Hmm.
with the clients that we've worked with. Okay. So I think, you know, you sort of talked through the mistakes. Can you sort of help me understand sort of that one element you sort of realize now a community needs to grow? I think this is something that a lot of the community leaders are faced with, you know, in that 0 to 1 when they're just starting out and they're like building their community and maybe they have that good like 20, 25 people, but like what is that thing that they need to get to what you've built, which is like literally thousands of people globally, sort of coming together to work on sort of somatics and their own growth.
People want to see be People want to be seen and heard.
Mm,
And I think that's the core elements of belonging.
mm,
And that if people feel like they're seen and heard in the actions of a community, they want to belong to that. If they feel individually seen and heard and understood, then they feel belonging. And in society where there's very few spaces now to feel like we belong, and in a very fractured society that is intentionally divisive, belonging feels really complicated. And I think when you boil it down, people keep showing up for each other and themselves and a community because they feel seen and heard and reflected back in other people or in the leaders or in the actions or in the values.
That's, yeah, that makes absolutely perfect sense. And I think that extends beyond communities and everything is like having this sense of belonging. I know, uh, feeling that and moving and with my friends and sort of even at my gym, like,
Hmm.
is this space safe? And we got to go work out at that gym in Temecula, and I was like, this isn't my gym. Like, this is a different. This is where I'm at right now, where I'm visiting family, but this isn't like my space. And so
Hmm.
shout out to the old heads, MySpace. But yeah, the that's really dope. Okay. There's like, so as we're doing our own version of, once again, I'm gonna miss one of them, uh, playful, microdose, imperfect. Oh, I'm gonna
See.
miss messy. See, this video itself is messy. I think what I'd love to do is sort of transition to this next section, which is sort of our rapid fire questions. And just to give context, the reason we are even doing this is because we want to sort of create these like nuggets of learning of information for other community builders so that they can like learn from you, they can learn from each other, they can learn from Laurentum, and we can sort of help them thrive, be more successful, grow bigger, increase their belonging. As a matter of fact, I'm going to step away from like growing bigger because bigger is not always better. But I would love
Hmm.
to help these communities like increase their feeling and intention around belonging so that their community members feel really, really engaged. So I just have a couple rapid fire questions for you. And
Hmm.
I love the pause before the answer. So feel free, continue the intentional answering. But yeah,
Well,
we're
let
just
me
gonna
let me
go.
have a sip of water and get
Sure,
ready
I
for
will.
the sprint.
I will sip of water. I was also thinking of like, should we have like people that we would want to sponsor brands and or brands that we would love to work with to sponsor communities that will
Oh,
like fake sponsors for this podcast? So as a
oh.
Waterloo lover, Waterloo, come connect with Laurentum because we would love to put you in touch with some communities that would
In
thrive in
kind.
partnership with you in kind. They'll take some waters and they will give you some amazing exposure to their
It's true.
community members.
It's
So
true.
yeah, this
We
is
should write the
this
dream
is
list.
this is Waterloo's summer berry. Not my favorite. My favorite is Waterloo pineapple, but I can't find it anymore.
Huh,
It was
good to
too
know.
good. It was the tears of
It's
it
too
was the tears
popular.
of God. It was popping. Okay. So, our first question. How do you manage communication with your community?
I've been divesting more from social media and doing newsletters, which people seem
Okay.
to really love and cuts through the noise and the busyness of communication nowadays, and then being more intentional. I'm seeing a lot of marketers talking about how the oversaturation of social media and like AI content and volume over or quantity over quality. So I've been really
Mm-hmm.
experimenting with like more direct, more intimate. Maybe we'll explore Substack as well. I know that that can be oversaturated too, but just like longer, more thoughtful communication rather than like rapid fire constant.
Okay.
And things
Yeah.
like group chats, WhatsApp, I'm really interested in the intimacy of those as well.
Mm. I have received the newsletter,
Hmm.
and it always feels like a little bit of a delight because yeah, it doesn't come that often, and it's usually really thought out and like lengthy. It's long, and I will like stop things to like sit and read and get into it. So that makes a lot of sense. Okay, what was the major unlock from going to like 0 to 1? So you've talked about sort of that initial event for you, but I'm
Hmm.
sure sort of there was some community building before that. So we have a fresh community builder who wants to learn from you. How do they go from sort of that idea to sort of step one?
Just begin.
Okay.
Start as small as possible. Be microdose,
Okay.
messy, imperfect, and playful.
Okay. I'm gonna dig. I'm gonna dig. Give me more. Give me more. Give me an example of like something super small.
You have a kernel of an idea.
Okay.
Experiment with what would it be like to take the smallest step to making that idea an event or a reality that's in person. Like, what are the lowest possible commitments that you need to create an event?
Okay.
No, and treat it like an experiment.
Okay. So like I want to do a social club for people who constantly have to tell white people about Lovecraft Country and how amazing that show is. And so am I just hosting like a picnic for Lovecraft Country lovers, or is that like the super small thing?
Picnic. Picnic's
Bring
it.
your
You
own,
don't need
bring your own
venue. You can do a
food,
BYO.
yep,
You
yep.
can do like a
Okay,
Partifull that's free platform,
okay,
tracks the RSVPs, makes the communication simple, and you tell people to turn up. You give them, maybe you make it even 1 hour,
okay,
and you give everyone the same prompt, just one question, and then see where the conversation goes.
okay. Yeah. What do you love about Lovecraft Country? That will be
Exactly.
my problem. Have you seen Lovecraft Country?
No.
See, this
See,
is
you
the
can
work.
test, you can
This
test
is
it on me.
this is the work that I'm doing. Everyone go watch
Values
Lovecraft
aligned.
Country on HBO. It's so fantastic. Okay.
Noted. That's my homework.
Um, how do you get people excited about attending an event?
As we spoke about, I think people are very oversaturated and
Mm-hmm.
social commitments. It feels like there's constant choice, particularly in big
Mm-hmm.
cities. There's endless choices. And I think it creates a lot of social flakiness for people where they're like, oh, the effort of going and hanging out with people, and particularly in convenience culture, we are really like optimizing our social interactions to be convenient for us. But actually,
Mm-hmm.
community is never going to be convenient. And it is about like showing up anyway. So it's trying to make, I think, the barrier as low as possible of like, hey, show up as you are, show up like in whatever mood you're in, and not make it like a potluck, for example, where it's like potlucks can often feel really intimidating. It's like, oh, I need to like cook a thing or buy a thing before I can even turn up, and that just feels like a barrier of entry. So it's like to get people excited to come to thing, it needs to feel really easeful and in a way convenient as possible so that they actually turn up and like invest in relationship, which is and community, which is not convenient ongoing, but just like to get it started and get people actually attend the event, it's make the barrier of entry really low.
I That is amazing. I'm gonna jump back from the rapid fire because I get to do what I want. And I think you said something really interesting there, which is like community is not necessarily convenient or easy. One of the things that I was thinking about, oh, we lost you. No, you're here. The one of the things,
And the
wow,
inconvenience of other people.
yeah.
I've been thinking a
The
lot about this.
I saw this thing from Trevor Noah, and he was talking about that like we've essentially ripped out the village, right?
Hmm.
So like childcare, food, health, cleaning, all of these things were things that were sort of done collectively within the village. But as we've moved away and we've gone into a smaller nucleus of experiences, and even the thing of talking about like, uh, people had roommates basically until they get married, but now kids want to sort of live alone when they're like 24, 25, and it's like, no, you shouldn't, that's so expensive, and there's all these other things you need to figure out within that. And so we are like building businesses around that. We're paying babysitters, we're paying chefs, we're paying house cleaners, we're paying all these people to replace the system that the village had already solved for. But the purpose of that is that like to exist in that village, i.e. to exist in a community, it was give and take. And so, and that was inconvenient, but everyone was doing it. It was a shared giving and taking versus now we're sort of like paying for the village. And yes, there's an inconvenience in like the expenditure of our capital, but that inconvenience is not shared equally between everyone. As a matter of fact, it is highly concentrated in people who are lacking capital and people who have a lot of capital. They are easily able to sort of replace the village with like dog walking and all that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's the most
We could
fascinating thing
talk
to
for an
me.
hour about this.
Yes. I think one
More.
of the most fascinating things to me is I have Metro, my precious lamb of God, perfect little dog. And I've had him for 9 years, and I've never paid for someone to watch my dog. Like, I've never paid anyone to ever watch my dog. And I have traveled extensively. And it is I have friends, I have family, I have community that I'm like, listen, come stay at my place. There'll be a steak in the fridge for you. There, he's chill, but like all of these people are there. And then when I have experiences or I talk to people who have dog walkers or dog sitters, and they're wildly expensive. And they're like, you're
Mhm.
paying someone like $150 a night to like chill at your house, to hang out with your dog? You don't have any friends? That's
Mhm.
crazy. Yeah.
It's really is.
Okay. Back into the rapid fire. And this is sort of the last question within the rapid fire. You were talking about delegating, just sort of how did you go about growing your team? So you were saying that some people in the community sort of expressed interest. How did you go about identifying them and sort of transitioning them into making them community contributors or leaders?
I didn't even have the capacity or foresight to hire early. I was just like in startup do mode, execution mode of just like do the thing and make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And people were drawn to the events that I was offering and would reach out and be like, hey, can I do some kind of like intern volunteering, like exchange program? Like it wouldn't necessarily be a paid situation, but people were felt drawn to the events and values aligned and saw themselves in those events and how they wanted to be as well, coming back to that sense of belonging. And they would be like, can I help you with this? Can I be at events doing this? Can I focus on social media with that? Would you, instead of paying me, maybe would you train me to lead these workshops or how
Mm-hmm.
to facilitate a group? And so there would be different forms of exchange while I was in really early days and offering these kinds of events. And then over time, it was much more formalized where I was like, okay, for every event that I do, I have a person who is the somatic support person, where I may be facilitating a group, but then I have someone who's like at the ready to support anyone who might need extra support one on one while I'm in a group space. So it became more formalized over time, but at the beginning it was very informal, very just like, hey, let's try this and see what happens and see if we're a good fit. And that you have your wants and needs met, and I have the practical support that is really helpful. So, yeah, it was
Yeah,
very informal to begin with, but the
that's
delegating became easier over time.
that sounds I think that's maybe the biggest nugget from me from this of like I know within myself less so because I've like worked at it quite a bit, but it is so tempting to try to go out perfectly. To try to
Mhm.
build a really, really perfect thing, thinking of all the contingencies. What is this going to look like versus just a scrappy, like, here's what it is. Like, here's what it is. Okay. Mia, thank you so much. Thank you for participating, and thank you to Waterloo for not sponsoring this.
Also,
But we
bring back
love you.
pineapple.
Bring back pineapple, and thank you for continuing to keep me hydrated so that I can do this amazing work. But besides Waterloo and Laurentum, a wonderful place for brands and communities to connect. Do you have anything to like sort of plug or share? What are you working on? give us the little last drops of tea.
Let me see. I'm always offering somatic coaching to individuals. Also offer team coaching, leadership coaching, executive coaching, and focus on soft skills and communication, and strategy and how to align values with strategy and execution. And then I'm always offering different facilitated group spaces. So a couple that is coming up, I'm offering group conversations around divesting from the attention economy and how to
Mm,
have more like thoughtful engagement and interaction. How do I share our creations? How to reclaim our time and attention from being mined by social media and addictive apps. Uh, and I also offer play spaces of like how to, as recovering serious people, I offer unfurling, which is 3 to 6 months group. So always have things going on.
okay. How
Um,
do people get in contact with you?
my website, which is my
Yep.
name, which is long, it's
Okay.
euphemiarussell.com. So
Okay.
EUPHEMIA Russell with two S's and two L's. But we
We're
can put
gonna
that in the
figure
show
out how to like,
notes.
yeah, we're gonna figure out how to like put it.
That's
We
too
like
long.
we're shooting this. We're gonna figure out how to like put a
We
little
are.
link at the bottom that pops up, like
Ta-da!
this type of thing. And then if someone wants to contact you about, sort of the learning or how they can grow as a community builder and working with Laurentum, what is your Laurentum email?
Mia at Laurentum.io.
Boop. We'll figure out how to like put that thing at the bottom. Okay. I feel good. I feel good. Is there anything else? Is there anything else we need to cover?
No, just
No?
thank you. It was a fun conversation,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I like the ways that it will feed into the ways that we approach community building and supporting community builders to thrive and
Yeah.
just like reorienting even you and me to like, why are we doing what we're doing?
Yeah. I am feeling a lot of appreciation right now in that I have fully embraced that this is going to be messy and hard, and we are not going to necessarily go in a straight line. And it is
Mhm.
just like, are the things that we're doing coming and tying back to the values that we have? And I think you have some great nuggets that I'm excited to share with sort of our community members who are currently on the platform. And yeah, I think a lot of the stuff that you said just sort of resonates of like, yeah, we're okay. We're doing the thing.
Doing good.
We're doing the thing. And then maybe I'll end with like a thank you to the, we don't have a name for them yet, but whoever watches this, whoever has watched 57 minutes and 49 seconds of us chit-chatting about community building, thank you. I love you. You make my heart beat, and I really really
Well,
appreciate you. And give us your feedback so that we can make it better. And this will probably be maybe one of the last times you see me, because Mia will be in the speaker seat. I just came in for like a special as we like figure this out. I'm a special
just
guest,
a cameo.
just a little cameo. Listen, we're just trying, just people trying to make it work. Okay, this was wonderful. Do we hit stop record? Is that what we do?
Yeah, that's what we do.
Boom. Hits